Let's talk movies. This year, according to my Letterboxd, I watched 82 films, which I'm very proud of myself. I wanted to narrow it down to my very favorite top 10 to share with you today because I watched some fantastic movies this year, found a new favorite director, and I just really need to talk about it with someone. These films are not in any particular order. I love them all equally. There's lots of independent films within this list and some directorial debuts as well, so hopefully you'll find something in here that you haven't seen before. The first film I have on here is The Daytrippers. When she discovers a love letter written to her husband by an unknown paramour, the distraught Eliza turns to her tight-knit Long Island family for advice. Now, I actually watched this movie twice in 2025. First, I think in February, and I gave it 3.5 stars, and I was like, that was fine. I don't get what the big deal is. And then I saw it again in theaters at the Paris Theater here in New York City, one of my favorite cinemas in the city, and ended up really loving it, gave it 5 stars, gave it a like, and even just going back and kind of watching some of the scenes, reminding myself of this movie and the feeling of it while I was preparing for this video, I was filled with so much warmth and joy from this movie. I think the charm of this movie really lies with the very claustrophobic but loving, well-meaning family at its center. You have Eliza and then her sister, played by Parker Posey, and then her mom and dad, as well as the sister's boyfriend, all going on this journey to try to discover what the heck is going on with Eliza's husband. One of my favorite scenes that really highlights just the overall family dynamic, and especially is a really shining moment for Anne Mira, is whenever the whole family ends up in this stranger's house or apartment in New York City after a very riveting backseat drivery car chase scene. The mom is really soaking up all the attention, retelling this car chase story, telling the whole why we're even in New York City to try to figure out if my daughter's husband is cheating on her, just really soaking in all of the attention she's getting from other people's drama. The boyfriend and the mom are kind of kikiing and doting on each other, and Parker Posey, who I can't remember her character's name for whatever reason, it's just Parker Posey. But Parker Posey and Eliza are both just watching it being ugh, mom is so annoying. It's so brilliant. It really finds a way to emphasize the hilarity of the mundane. I feel this is the ultimate comfort watch if you like movies that are about very messy but loving families. The next movie on my list is Maurice. Two English school chums find themselves falling in love at Cambridge. After his lover rejects him, Maurice attempts to come to terms with his sexuality within the restrictiveness of Edwardian society. Maurice is a movie for yearners, for those that love romance, forbidden love, deep longing. I love this movie not only because it's just a really beautiful and moving love story, and it's also very sexy, but I think also, even though it's set in 1909 in England, so it's obviously not the most liberated time for non-straight people, but I feel the movie ultimately has a very hopeful message for our title character, a hopeful ending. And there's also something interesting about watching these two men who fall in love and then choose different sort of paths for how to navigate these big feelings that they're having in a society that doesn't really accept them. And I also feel even though in my view Maurice gets the better outcome than Clive, I don't really feel that the movie necessarily makes one person more morally correct than the other for the choice that they needed to make for themselves in order to feel safe. And I don't know, I was just so moved by this movie when I saw it. I'd never heard of it before, and I feel no one ever talks about it. Next on my list is Linda, Linda, Linda. Linda, Linda. Sorry, you have to sing it whenever you say it. Linda, Linda, Linda is a movie about a group of girls who are in a kind of makeshift band who need to learn to play a song before the school festival. It's so simple in premise, but I feel the movie has so much heart. It says a lot about female friendship and also sort of what we choose to impart meaning into. They're not trying to make it as a band, but they put so much importance into this like school festival that they're going to play in a few days. They're spending all of their energy on getting this song right. And I love like the passion for the mundane, and I love the passion for like the things that we choose, and that something small can be meaningful. And it's really like the people that come to it that bring things meaning rather than anything maybe inherently being meaningful. I also want to shout out this movie for some of the shot composition and set design. I think that they did a great job of like making the world feel extremely lived in and very like just teenage girl. This movie will make you laugh. This movie will warm your heart, and it will inspire you to, I think, like, pick something that is meaningful to you and just work towards it because it matters to you. And that is a really nice feeling to walk away from a movie with. Next on the list, we have Just Another Girl on the I.R.T. With hopes of becoming a doctor and not a product of her environment, a Brooklyn teenager growing up in the NYC projects is faced with numerous challenges that threaten her dreams. Considering it's a directorial debut, this movie really like impressed and surprised me with how self-assured it felt from the direction standpoint, how self-assured our main character, Chantal, is on camera, how charismatic she is. And I think it's a really like compelling and refreshing portrait of like a young Black woman coming into herself. And it's a coming of age story that deals with like a lot of really big like social and political issues. It's very ambitious in what it tries to tackle, and I really love the lens that it's told through from this very truly like dynamic and complex main character. I think I read that like the director Leslie Harris, she was like asked, I guess, about developing the character of Chantal. She had said that she was really tired of seeing Black women portrayed like in movies as either like moms, wives, like girlfriends, just kind of appendages to whatever like the male character was, and they were always like directed by men, written by men. And she really wanted a character that, you know, had a lot more complexity. There are several like fourth wall breaks throughout the movie, and the filming style is kind of like sort of documentary, like cinema verite or whatever-esque. And so it gives you the sense that you're really like just following this girl through her days, like we're just tagging along right beside her, and like it really kind of draws you into her world. Next we have a French film called Holy Cow. Tonton's carefree teenage life of drinking and dancing takes a turn when he must provide for his 7-year-old sister. Seeking money, he channels his energy into producing an award-winning Comté cheese to claim a competition prize. Sorry, my radiator's going. My radiator, my radiator. It's a very quaint film. It's a very authentic feeling film. And I think a lot of this like comes down to the direction and casting choices from, I don't know how to say her name. I'm gonna say Louise Courvoisier. The film was shot in Jura, where the director was raised, so she knows a lot about this sort of like more rural French community. And the casting was all done from like, I think they did a lot from the local high school. The casting directors went to like stock car races and agricultural shows to try to find people to cast. So a lot of the actors are first-time actors, or at least like sort of non-professional actors, which I think feels like these people really have lived these characters and understand them in a really deep and inside out kind of way. I also think that this film has one of the most like beautiful depictions of like male friendship that I've ever seen. These friendships feel so sincere, so lived in, and so just sweet. Like these guys are really there to support his friend who goes through like a life-altering event. I just really thought it was so beautiful, and I really appreciated seeing that. Kind of like complete opposite of the last movie I just mentioned in terms of tone, atmosphere, and also the highly stylized versus naturalistic argument of it all. I have Nosferatu. I'm sure many of you watched this film whenever it came out, but in case you missed it, here is the premise. A gothic tale of obsession between a haunted young woman and the terrifying vampire infatuated with her, causing untold horror in its wake. I really love this from just like a, I guess, set design, costume design, production design standpoint. It is extremely gothic and atmospheric, so dark. So many of the shots are absolutely stunning. The landscapes are incredible. Like, it's just a very beautiful looking film. With the sound design and the music, they do a great job of just like building tension throughout. I remember seeing it in theaters and just having this like very visceral feeling of dread like the whole movie. I was just like, oh, and I felt so like engrossed because of how immersive the environment that they created is. I don't know if this is like a good read of it, and I've never like really looked into like film theories about it, and so I'm just saying now that this is probably not what I was meant to take away at all from the movie, but I'm curious what you think. But in my view, the way that the movie ends, which I won't spoil it, but I feel like there is this almost subversive like thesis that to embrace your desire and like liberate yourself from like the shame of it is actually extremely healing. I don't know. Just chew on that, and let me know what you think in the comments. The next movie that I'm throwing in right after Nosferatu to just completely like shatter what I was just talking about as a horror movie fan is Funny Games, the 1997 Austrian original version, not the remake. Two violent young men take a mother, father, and son hostage in their vacation cabin and force them to play sadistic games with one another for their own amusement. I'll start off just saying that the film is like very technically well done. It has very confident direction. The shot design is really, really great. The editing is fantastic. The acting is so, so strong. And all of that like contributes to the kind of like anxiety that you would, I guess, anticipate feeling whenever you're going in to watch a horror movie. Like you do not feel good through any of this viewing experience. It's like the least pleasant, other than Hamnet. I feel like Hamnet and Funny Games were the two movies that I watched last year that made me feel the worst. But what I really think is brilliant about this movie is that it actually asks you to question your own position as the viewer and your own complicity in the harmful acts that are being done to the people that you're supposed to be rooting for. When you think about a horror movie, typically we have like, you know, our main characters who are our heroes, and then whether it's a supernatural force or some bad guy person, something will disrupt their otherwise like normal, happy life and cause them so much pain. Ultimately, we feel like we're on the side of like our main characters because we're rooting for them to prevail. We want someone to win in the end. But in reality, in order to get our entertainment, the bad guy in the scenario is kind of the one who's giving us what we want, no? Like without them, there would be no movie. Really, we want the bad guys to come in and do their thing so that we have a story, so that we are entertained. I just find that very like provoking and a little bit challenging as a viewer, which I really appreciate. This sort of line of thinking is accomplished through a series of fourth wall breaks from one of our like murderous young men who talks directly to us, and I won't spoil anything, but something that happens in the third act, like where you are reminded that this is a movie, but also like you're not gonna get what you think you're gonna get from it, is just like, I've never seen anything like it. It's a movie that you'll watch and be thinking about for a long time. Next up, we have a true hidden gem, Pariah. It follows Alike, a Brooklyn teenager juggling conflicting identities who risks friendship, heartbreak, and family in a desperate search for sexual expression. What really stood out to me about this coming of age story of coming into one's sexuality is that there's so much like compassion, I think, coming through from the director for all of the characters, like all of their different views and experience, what they're coming to the table with, like, and I've never seen a film, I feel like, that so empathetically handles all of its characters, even when I think morally some of the characters aren't really coming from the right place. I really admire that filmmaking because I think it requires a level of nuance that is difficult to engage with, especially around like issues that are so tender. I really, really loved like watching the relationships with her parents unfold and the complexities of that. And ultimately, I think our character like lands in a very like liberated and positive place within herself, which is also just wonderful to see. I'm gonna try a little bit more French for this one. Next on the list, we have La Double Vie de Véronique. Yeah. The Double Life of Véronique contains two parallel stories about two identical women, one living in Poland, the other in France. They don't know each other, but their lives are nevertheless profoundly connected. This is a very like metaphysical, kind of mysterious movie. The connection between these two women is never really explained to us as viewers. It's just kind of like a premise that we are asked to accept from the jump, and then we need to move on and move into the film. And the world that Kieslowski creates is so like ethereal. It's so beautiful to look at, all of this like green gold atmosphere, this like music that's a little bit like haunting and eerie but beautiful from our sort of fictional in-universe composer. This film to me feels more like dreamy, and like it's something that you're supposed to kind of interpret through the senses rather than like through your head. Again, kind of because the underlying like premise of our two main characters, like connection played by the same actress, is never really explained. And I like that because it sort of allows me to be very present with the movie and just like experience the feelings that it brings up for me rather than trying to interpret and analyze everything. And it still kind of like touches, I think, on sort of our existential questions about like how we discover who we are and why we do the things we do. If you kind of want something that is like dreamy and atmospheric, but maybe like not so dark and scary like a Nosferatu, with still sort of this like unexplained kind of mythic aspect to everything. There's really not so much else to say. It's just a beautiful film. The last movie on my list is Bug. An unhinged war veteran holes up with a lonely woman in a spooky Oklahoma motel room. The line between reality and delusion is blurred as they discover a bug infestation. I love movies like this where it's just kind of like you're really watching these actors go like par to par with one another, and that makes a lot of sense with this film because it is originally a Broadway like play that was like kind of rewritten for the screen, really very minorly, like nothing changed. I've seen it on Broadway, they're like the same, but I think the movie is fantastic. The big takeaway from this movie, or like the big joy, is really just like the excellence of the acting. Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon are our main characters. I think their performances are both like very powerful and arresting, and together they really like play off one another's energy like extremely well. I know in the premise it says that they're dealing with a bug infestation, but like fairly quickly we as the audience know that there's more going on, is what I'll say, again, to not spoil anything. And I really love the way that the movie depicts Agnes, our like female lead, like depicts her sort of descent into the views and perspective of Peter, Michael Shannon's character. And they do this like in a very visual way. I'm really trying to talk around it because I don't want to spoil it, but I think that this movie does such a good job of depicting, I guess, like how codependency can impact us, I'll say. I am running out of time. I actually am gonna go see another movie at the theater in like an hour, and so I have to get on the train. But I would be remiss if I did not mention my very favorite director's films as a special bonus, because all of them, his entire oeuvre, is my like favorite, and that is Joachim Trier. Everything he touches is so brilliant, and it is so exactly up my alley. The way that his movies make me feel is the same way that Rachel Cusk's books make me feel, which is to say, like, I feel like they're both experts at showing characters that are very obviously flawed, but in a way that doesn't fault them for it so much as just shows the consequences of their humanness. There's such a like, just like steady and patient focus in Joachim's films where I really feel like the actors have an opportunity to shine and showcase like whatever their character's going through, like in a very like subtle, like micro expressions, soft, quiet moments, like ways that like just like really highlights like the actors' strengths, makes them feel so human, like the characters. And I feel like every story of his, like, they're all extremely like melancholic in the way that I kind of just feel like, I guess as somewhat existentially, like I kind of just feel like that's the way that life feels. So all of the movies are like so true to life and like my own like sense of it anyway. And they're all like beautifully shot, also well acted. Like I just love this man and I love his movies. I watched, I think, every feature film that he has out, starting with Oslo, August 31st, which has remained my very favorite film of his. And I just like highly, highly recommend him if you like very character-driven films. You're not gonna get like crazy plot, but if you just wanna spend time with a person and like lean into the kind of fundamental confusion that is like figuring out how to human, then you will, I think, really appreciate his films. And with that, that is my top 10 with a bonus films that I watched in 2025. I'm very excited to keep up my movie watching habit in the new year. I am highly considering getting an AMC A-list membership or pass or whatever, because I think I'll abuse that privilege if I get it. So I'm sure I'll have some more recommendations for you soon. I also love to hear other people's recommendations, so let me know if any films that you watched last year like really stuck with you, what they were, why you liked them. And also if you watched any of the films in this list, I'd be really curious what your thoughts are or your interpretation of like the themes or what did and didn't work. All that would be lovely to get into in the comments. Give this video a like if you want to see more sort of like movie or media recommendation content from me. That's very helpful for me to know, and feel free to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.